Yeah, but mine's not really college. You know, I played for Richardson's Insurance Company. When I was, 9 years old, when I was growing up, you couldn't play organized baseball until you were 9, and my town used to have a parade. You know, baseball is a big deal where I grew up in home Massachusetts, and the Little League team, and the whole community would come out, and you get candy. You wake up at like 6. You know, it's like Christmas morning. You're waking your parents up to put your uniform on, and they'd paint your face. And, yeah, I always have a debt of gratitude on opening day. There'll be emotions. For me, I get to put a uniform on. You know, I'm 45 years old, and I get the privilege to lead this program, live in this community, and I've been entrusted to get this thing going. I don't take that responsibility lightly, but I'm also going to enjoy it. There's a smile on your face. It's a special time of year at every level. You know, you guys know what big league opening day is like. You know, college opening day for us, I always say opening day in the postseason. You know, opening day, and then if you can get in that field of 64, and I really want to sit in a room like this in a handful of months and hear our ticket get punched, and that's what we get up and work really hard for. Those are the two moments for me as a coach that are really, really special. Opening day, and then you're in the grind of it. And I love watching the players. They're all over the place. You know, BP usually isn't very good. Guys in the bullpen are throwing the ball all over the place. There's so much emotion and energy, and as coaches, you're a little juiced up too, a little too juiced up. You know, because you've been waiting so long for it to happen. So yeah, but Richardson Insurance Company, in home Massachusetts, I don't think Richardson Insurance Company exists anymore. We had these purple and gold uniforms that the paint was faded off of them, and I felt like I was getting dressed to go play in the World Series for the Red Sox when I was a little kid. So yeah, that's my fondest memory, and the parades in town and stuff, and to think that I'm still having the privilege to do that now is pretty special.
Yeah, you gave us your weekend rotation. Did you have things kind of mapped out for midweek guys?
No. No, we'll address Tuesday when we get there. Look, how I always run it, and it's going to go game to game. We're going to try to get a W when we can get it. You know, if we can smell a W late in the game, my players already know that have played for me. We're not saving anything for Tuesday. We'll address Tuesday when we get there. We're not going to save a guy on a Saturday or a Sunday because we're worried about Tuesday, and then, you know, that game gets away from. We might score 10 in the first inning the next night. We might give up 10 in the first inning the next night. If we have an opportunity to win games, we're going to empty the tank and win that game, and we'll address the next game when we get there. I think in college baseball, every game's a postseason game. I think that's the hardest thing for the players when they get here. Every game's a postseason game. There's stakes and RPI and all that stuff that you guys know about. We got to go get wins. And when we have an opportunity to do so, we'll do that, and then we'll address those games on the midweek when we get there.
You did have 2 guys that were named to the All-Sunbelt Conference teams. I know ultimately it doesn't matter, but what does that say about the perception of your program?
No, it matters. It matters. And, you know, I'm not a coach that's going to give you the coach speak. It matters a lot. It's a tribute to those young men. You know, Patrick was a kid that didn't get an opportunity to play very much at Oklahoma, and you recruit those kids, and I feel like when we got here, we were selling air, and I don't mean that as any disrespect to this place. Anybody that spent any time with me knows how I feel about this university and this community. But we didn't have a lot to sell, and he had a lot of options, and he chose to come here, and he worked really hard, and look, I'm not a treat to deal with every day. That's just the truth, and the standard that we have for him and the expectations that we put on him, it's a lot every day. And so for him to get recognized by the coaches in our league of the caliber of players as the preseason all-conference shortstop, that's a heck of an accomplishment. And then Ashton Quiller was a red shirt at Nichols. You know, he didn't have a lot of opportunities coming out of high school, and for him to trust me and come here with us last year and turn himself into the player that he's turned himself into, those young men, the players they've turned themselves into, that's not a me thing, that's a them thing. And we demand a lot out of them, and for them to get that type of recognition, it's tremendous, and I'm really excited for them. I think it says a lot about our team and the direction that our program's going. To get that type of respect across this league, it does mean a lot, and we need to make sure we celebrate those things. So yeah, it's a really big deal, and you spend 2 minutes with both of their parents, and you realize the type of kids that they are, or young men that they are right now, and so those are the people that deserve, you know, a lot of the credit for their development.
Coach, you mentioned selling air. Talk about the difference the day you were hired to where you are now with the commitment to winning, the resources, etc.
Yeah, and we're not where we need to be yet, right? But we're so much further along than we were, and we need to celebrate that. I think that from the top of our campus with Dr. Todd Shields and just his willingness to, look, man, that man doubled down on me last summer, and he didn't have to. You know, that's the truth. He could have walked away, and there was a lot of uncertainties. Do we have the financial means to get this thing where it needs to go? And I hope everybody at some point in their career gets to work for somebody like that doubles down on them like he did on me. Coaches need a shot in the arm sometimes too. He got us more scholarship money. We have some rev share money now. We have opportunities to, you know, we're not where we need to be in either of those areas, and everybody knows that. But the amount of growth in a year, just from a resource standpoint, it's unbelievable. I mean, this time last year, we were coming off of our first week on our field. from the Slayton family to the Stem and Kibler family to the leadership we have at the front of this campus, the way this community's rallied around us. I pay attention to how the concession stand food tastes and the advertising dollars that are coming into this program. And we've sold all our advertising for our games. We couldn't do that a year ago. Our season tickets are, close to double where they were at this time a year ago. And so, all that stuff matters. It does. It all matters. And yeah, we have something to sell. And when people come on to our campus now, you can see the growth. There's always something going on out there. And, I guess I'll say this to our community, like some grace, like there's some gratitude, because I know it doesn't look the way anybody wants it to at our field right now, but that's because we're making progress. And our administration, from the top of our campus down, is committed to getting this thing where it needs to get to. But it's going to be a process. That's part of the reason that I was given such a long runway. I feel like people saw that growth last year, and we doubled down. And I'm not patient. I want it to happen fast. But across the board, there's a level of excitement that wasn't here a year ago. And I think players and young people feel that. And I always say our strength is our community. And if we get a recruit in for a day, maybe. If we get them in for a weekend, I like our chances, and they get a chance to be around you guys, and then the people that live here, because this is a really special place to live. And so, yeah, and then kids calling and emailing. There's coaches now that are calling, asking if their players are good enough to play here, or before they were, their players didn't want to come here. You look at what we've done recruiting from an Arkansas standpoint. A lot of times those kids weren't choosing to come here, and now they are. And you look at our camps, and we have camps, and the type of talent that shows up there. Yeah, across the board, that's growth, and I pay attention to all of that. It's really important. And the relationships that we have, the emails, the phone calls, the people that have interest in being a part of our program now, it's different. We have to keep going. There's still another tier to get to, but yeah, tremendous growth in a really short amount of time if you really take a step back and look at it.
Somebody picked it kind of like afterwards. About baseball, is that right?
That's right, 100%. That was scheduled, and then they dropped baseball, so we're trying to find somebody else. I think Stony Brook lost somebody as well. I think they were going south, and it worked out. I was happy because the level of competition is going to be better, and it's going to be a challenge for us, and I like to get challenged right out the gate, especially early before we get into league play. Like we just talked about that conference schedule. I mean, you go look at, UNC Wilmington's in their league. They went down to Southern Miss last year and gave them everything they wanted, and so just getting to play those type of teams, I think is going to prepare us for conference. And they have a new coach. He's a new coach, so he's going to be fiery and ready to go. And, if you go and research Jim Martin, he's really good. And he's fiery, and he's really detail-oriented, and he's a great teacher of the game, and he's going to demand a lot of his players. So I expect them to be prepared and ready to go when they get here.
What was the biggest thing you learned in year one being a head coach in this league?
Well, I've been in the league before, not as a head coach. I would love to tell you something stood out. It was what I expected it to be. I knew how hard it was going to be. I like that. I knew how hard this job was going to be. It's as hard as I thought it was going to be. That's the truth. The biggest thing that I learned last year was that if we put a really good product on the field and we play really hard, and something this community can identify with, and we connect with people, they're going to support us. And you don't know that when you get somewhere, and they did. If you look at the crowds we had towards the end of the year last year, that was humbling. I mean, I feel like opening day I could have yelled at the concession stand, asked for a Coke and a hot dog, and somebody might have run one out. And towards the end of the year, we were playing in some big series. That Troy series got away from us, but there was a buzz in that ballpark. There was a buzz outside the ballpark. There was an excitement level. I think Jake hit a home run late in one of those games. It was the first time I leaned over to Cody, and I was my pitching coach, who's been with me every step of the way, and I said, hey man, like, it's getting real. Like, you can feel it. Like, there's an energy, and that was really exciting. And you that's what your job is, to create that excitement level. And then going around town, just people are talking about our program, and that wasn't the case. Usually when I was walking into a place last year, people asking, who you were and what you coached, and now it's, hey, we're looking forward to the season, and the type of support that we're getting is tremendous. So nothing about the league really surprised me. It's as hard as I thought it was going to be. But I did feel like towards the end of the league, we can do this. We can do this. This can happen here in Jonesboro. We can win at a really high level, and it can happen a lot faster than people think. We just got to go out and do it and execute. The thing that I worry about the most is last year I felt like the players in that locker room are waiting for something bad to happen early in the season. I'm hoping that this year's team understands what they're capable of, and we can go out and achieve that. And I think if we do that, it's going to be a really fun ride. But it's going to be a roller coaster, and there's going to be ups and downs. But we're talented enough. A year ago, we were not talented enough. I thought we overachieved. This year, we're talented. We have talent. I'm not going to run from that. They're inexperienced, That's why we get paid as coaches, to bring them along and develop them. And so I feel confident we're going to do that. And I feel confident the growth from the start of the fall to today is substantial. And if we can grow that much between right now and the time we get to conference play, and then from conference play to the end of the season, why can't we go ahead and do this and make a big jump this year?
You didn't address your outfield. How does that look? Outfielders?
Well, Quiller's going to start in center. And then I don't know. We got, like I said, you got Jalen Fox, you got Evan Griffiths, you got cross jumper, Jake Henry Williams, guys that have been out there before. They're all in the mix right now. It's been really competitive. I mean, each day I would say, walking out the field on Friday, I probably feel this way. Walking out on Saturday, I feel this way. Walking on Sunday, I'll tell you, all those guys are going to have to play for us. So I think we'll platoon and go matchups. And I'm going to need some of our older players that have played a lot to show some leadership and some mental toughness when I ask them to take a back seat. And I think that's going to determine the type of success that we have. If I have older guys that are upset, I don't want anybody to be happy they're not playing. But if everybody can put the team first in that locker room, and unselfishness in this era is really challenging, they're going to have to do so. And it's not because they're not good players or doing anything wrong. It's because we have some different options, or we feel like we can match up against people. And there's times we're going to need more speed and athleticism on the field, and there's times we're going to need more power on the field. And they're going to have to, everybody wants to build a program. I told the players this the other day. Everybody wants the program to be good. Everybody, I just want to play for a winner, right? Until you ask them to take a different role. That's what made Will Friend so special last year. Everybody just wants to win until they're the one that's sitting on the bench and maybe being a pinch hitter or moving from the outfield to DH or being a platoon player. And it's not a knock on those guys. I said all of our returners are better, but we did a good job when we hit on some young players that are special. They have special ability. And if their maturity accelerates, there's going to be times where some of our older established players are going to have to play a secondary role. And I'm as intrigued as anybody to see how they're going to be able to handle that. I know the character of those young men, but it's a lot easier to talk about it. It's a lot harder to be about it when you're the one that's the odd person out. And so I am concerned with that going into opening weekend because I don't know. I know Quiller's going to start in center field, and I don't know who's going to play left or right field right now. And you have two guys that are in my locker room that return, and it could be Jake and it could be Cross, but it might not be. And I am concerned about how they handle that. And hopefully they can handle it the right way if it's not. And as soon as I get the rotation, I should have their rotation either later today or tomorrow afternoon, I'll have more of an idea of probably what that's going to look like.
Coach, how important is that depth, that talent to creating a much needed competitive culture in that locker room?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's why practice is better. That's why I feel like we're more prepared this year than we were a year ago. Our practices are like tryouts. I mean, these guys are going after it. They're getting it. Those kids know. They understand what's at stake. And when you have that type of competitiveness day in and day out, I always say then the games kind of turn into recess. We get everybody in the dugout, and if we're all pulling on the same end of the rope, and when you've seen everything you can see, even if you came out this weekend, we started a lot of pitchers and brought a lot of guys out of the bullpen. I felt like every guy we rolled out there on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on both sides are good enough to start at the front end of our rotation. That was not the case a year ago. And some of our guys that would be able to put them in different roles that we wouldn't have been able to do last year, yeah, it's awesome. And you're going to get exposed. Our best players get exposed in inter-squads. They get exposed offensively. If you make a mistake as a pitcher, we're going to hurt you right now. And we couldn't do that a year ago. So it's huge. It really is. And it gives you an opportunity if somebody's dinged up. Look, Quiller was out sick yesterday for practice. And I had to put Jalen Fox, a freshman, in center field. And we didn't miss a beat. He played outstanding. He stepped up. And he has that type of athleticism and that type of ability. And so, yeah, that's huge because we didn't really have somebody we felt like we could go out there last year with Ashton. It ended up benefiting us. But, I don't know if he has the second half of the season, if we had another option with how much he was struggling offensively as a young player. But fast forward this year with those really talented young players, you can't really give them that leash because you have some older experienced players in there as well. And then with the older experienced players, if they don't get off to a good start, we got to throw some. We got to change it up and throw some guys out there that have the ability to do it and see what they can do and give them a little bit of leash. And so it's huge to be able to have that. It's definitely made us better, and I think it's going to give us an opportunity to have some success.
First base, other positions in the infield, just who are some of the people in?
Yeah. So right now, he tweaked his leg yesterday, but Derek Martinez, has been playing the best over there. And then you're looking at potentially putting a middle infielder over there again. I'm a big on getting our best 9 on the field. And so I think Casey Campbell will see some time over there and at second base and at third base. I think that, Lane Walton will have to see some time over at first base. So 3 different options really right now. That's what I'd say early in the season, what you're looking at. But Derek, I mean, he has as much power as anybody. We need more consistency out of him at the plate. But defensively, he's played the best over there, and I think that's a really important defensive position. And so if we don't have him over there, we're going to move one of our middle infielders over there and let him play. Just because you saw last year what that did to us when we moved Will to first base, and you basically can put – I mean, there's a chance we could have basically every guy in the infield a former shortstop. And so we should play really good infield defense. And I'm always going to hang my head on that. I know it doesn't sell tickets, but it wins games, as we saw in the Super Bowl yesterday. So we got to play really high-level defense.
Any more questions? All right, thank you.
Appreciate y'all.